I was only 9 years old when my own father left me alone at an airport while he boarded a luxury vacation with his new family. I stood there holding my small backpack, watching him walk away without looking back. I thought my heart had already been broken enough after my parents' divorce, but I had no idea that day would change my entire life. Years later, when I finally stopped hoping he would come back, one unexpected phone call exposed a truth my father had hidden for decades. And that call forced him to face the daughter he abandoned. My name is Emily Carter, and I was 28 years old when I finally understood that the hardest memories from childhood are not always the ones you try to forget. Sometimes, they are the ones that quietly shape who you become. But before I tell you how my father came back into my life years later, you need to know about the day he left me behind. I was 9 years old when my parents got divorced. Before that, my father, Daniel Carter, was my entire world. He was the person who carried me on his shoulders, helped me with homework, and promised me that no matter what happened, I would always be his little girl. At least, that was what I believed. After the divorce, everything changed. My father remarried a woman named Victoria, and slowly, I started feeling like I was no longer part of his life. Victoria had 2 children from her previous marriage, and my father seemed determined to create a perfect new family with them. Then one summer, he told me something that made me feel special again. "We're going on a vacation," he said. "And this time, you're coming with us." I remember being so excited that I packed my small pink suitcase days before we left. I imagined myself sitting beside my father on the airplane, exploring a new place, and finally feeling like I belonged again. The morning of the trip, we arrived at the airport. My father, Victoria, and her children walked beside me as I held my backpack tightly. But when we reached the check-in counter, my father suddenly looked uncomfortable. "Emily, there's been a problem with your ticket," he said. I looked at him, confused. "What kind of problem?" He avoided my eyes. "Just wait here for me. I'll fix it." Those were the last words he said before walking away with his new family. At first, I believed he would come back. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 30. And when I looked through the airport window, I saw my father boarding the plane with them. Without me. After that day at the airport, something inside me changed forever. My father eventually came back from his vacation and acted like nothing serious had happened. He told my mother there had been a misunderstanding, and that he thought I was going to stay with her instead. But I knew the truth. I remembered standing alone with my suitcase. I remembered watching the airplane leave. I remembered the feeling of realizing that my own father had made a choice. And he chose them. After that, my relationship with him became different. He still called sometimes, but his calls became shorter and less frequent. He would promise to visit, but there was always an excuse. "Work has been crazy." Victoria already made plans. "The kids have activities this weekend." There was always a reason why he couldn't be there for me. But somehow, he always had time for his new family. I would see pictures online of their vacations, birthday celebrations, and expensive dinners. My father looked happier than ever. He smiled beside Victoria and her children like they were the only family he had ever wanted. Meanwhile, I was learning how to stop expecting anything from him. My mother was the person who picked up the pieces. She helped me understand that my father's choices were not a reflection of my worth. But when you are a child, it is hard to believe that. I spent years wondering what was wrong with me. Was I not fun enough? Was I not important enough? Why did he choose another family over his own daughter? Those questions followed me through my teenage years. Eventually, I stopped trying to earn my father's attention. I focused on school, built friendships, and created a life that did not depend on his approval. I told myself I didn't need him anymore. I convinced myself I was completely over it. But deep down, there was still a little 9-year-old girl inside me who wanted one thing. For her father to finally admit that leaving her behind was the biggest mistake he ever made. For years, I believed I had finally moved on from my father. I built a life that had nothing to do with him. I graduated from college, started my career, and created a home where I felt valued and loved. I learned that family was not always about the people who shared your last name. Sometimes, it was about the people who showed up when you needed them. My father was no longer someone I waited for. At least, that was what I told myself. Then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. I almost ignored the unknown number, but something made me answer. "Is this Emily Carter?" a man asked. "Yes." "Who is this?" There was a long pause before he responded. "My name is Robert Williams. I work with your father's financial advisor." My heart immediately sank. I hadn't heard anything about my father in months. We had barely spoken, and I had accepted that distance between us. "Is something wrong?" I asked. The man took a deep breath. "Your father is going through some serious problems, and there is something you need to know." I sat silently, waiting. The man explained that the perfect life my father showed everyone was falling apart. The luxury vacations, the expensive house, the image of a successful family, it was not what it appeared to be. My father had lost control of his finances. His business was struggling. His new family, the one he chose over me, was no longer the picture of happiness he wanted everyone to believe. But the part that shocked me the most was this. He had been asking about me. After years of silence, after leaving me at that airport and walking away, my father suddenly wanted to reconnect. The little girl inside me wanted to know why. Why now? Why after all these years? And most importantly, did he finally realize what he had lost? That night, my phone rang again. This time, it was my father. I stared at my phone for almost a minute before answering. Part of me wanted to let it ring. Part of me wanted to protect the little girl who had spent years waiting for him to choose her. But another part of me needed answers. So I answered. "Emily." The sound of my father's voice immediately brought back memories I thought I had buried. "Hi, Dad." There was silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind filled with years of things left unsaid. "I know I don't deserve this call," he finally said. "But I need to see you." For years, I had imagined this moment. I imagined him apologizing. I imagined him explaining everything. I imagined him finally understanding how much pain he caused. But when the moment actually came, I didn't feel the satisfaction I expected. I just felt tired. We agreed to meet at a small coffee shop near my apartment. When I saw him walk through the door, he looked older than I remembered. The confident man who once walked away from me at the airport was gone. He sat across from me and looked down at his hands. "Emily, I made the biggest mistake of my life." I didn't say anything. "I thought I was building a better life," he continued. "I convinced myself that you would be okay. That your mother had you. That you didn't need me." I looked at him and finally said the words I had carried for years. "I was 9 years old, Dad. I didn't need a perfect father. I just needed my father to come back." His eyes filled with tears. "I know." "No, you don't," I replied. "Because you got to go on with your life. You got to watch your new family grow. But I was the daughter you left behind." He lowered his head. For the first time, my father wasn't making excuses. He was facing the truth. And the truth was that one decision at an airport had changed my entire childhood. "I am sorry," he whispered. I believed he meant it. But forgiveness was something he couldn't ask for instantly. It was something he would have to earn. After that meeting, I thought things would go back to the way they were. But they didn't. For the first time in years, my father stopped making promises and started showing actions. He didn't ask me to forget what happened. He didn't expect me to suddenly become the daughter who trusted him completely again. Instead, he started small. He called when he said he would. He showed up when we made plans. He listened when I spoke, even when the things I said were painful for him to hear. One day, he told me something I never expected. "I spent years thinking I lost my daughter because of circumstances," he said. "But the truth is, I was the one who walked away." That was the first time I felt like he truly understood. For a long time, I believed forgiving my father meant pretending the airport never happened. But I learned something important. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting the pain. It means accepting that the past happened, learning from it, and refusing to let it control your future. The little girl who stood alone at that airport wanted her father to come back and fix everything. She wanted him to prove that she was worth choosing. But the woman I became learned something different. My worth was never determined by the person who left me. I was worthy because I existed. Because I loved. Because I survived something that could have broken me. Today, my relationship with my father is not perfect. Some wounds take time to heal. Some memories never completely disappear. but we are rebuilding something honest. And maybe that is better than pretending we were never broken. Because family is not just about who is connected to you by blood. Family is about who chooses you, who stays, who shows up when it matters most. And after all those years, my father finally learned that lesson. But I learned mine long before he did.